Hey, it's David. I need to sort out a problem with the chain on the Bandit, so it's back on the lift. This chain has been on the bike for quite a long time. I think it was put on the bike in about 2011, and bike's had some changes since then, but I think it's still the same chain. Now, that's not a lot necessarily, because I don't think it's done a lot of miles, but what it has done at various points is sat around for quite a long time. It certainly has since I've owned it, because sometimes it's been sat in the back of the shed where I've not been able to get to it on a regular basis, and I've ridden it in the salt and the snow and everything else. So I think what's happened is the chain is just deteriorated, not through stretching and wear, but through the chain not being looked after properly. And I'd say it's probably my fault on that one, at least to some extent. If you look at the chain here, it's quite loose, but watch the chain as I turn the wheel. There, you see that pull up there, just as it comes tight, and now it's much tighter. There we go, see that drop off again there. So this chain, it goes up here and then it drops. So there's a tight point in the chain, and this is what I can feel when I'm riding away from the lights or a junction. But in any case, it's time to come off. So I'm going to do it the quick and dirty way. I've shown different ways of doing it before, and I changed the chain recently on the 650 Bandit, so you can look at that if you want to see a different way of doing it. But now, quick and dirty with the actual cutting disc on the angle grinder. So let's get it off. But first things first, let's access it and get it clean. Because I'm not just changing the chain, I'm taking the opportunity to do chain and sprockets. It means the whole thing's got to come off. So that means side cover here, chain guard, don't have to take it off, but it's easier if you do, and it allows you to clean inside it. And then once we've got those off, I can loosen off the front sprocket. Maybe have a go at loosening off the back sprocket bolts, because I don't know how tight they're going to be. And it's easier to do all of this when the weight is on the bike, and then the chain can come off. Now, once again, this has got a mark on it. That's a little scratch to line up when putting it back on, so I know it's in the right place. With the chainring nuts just loosened off, it's time just to do the same with the axle. I'm going to slacken off the chain adjuster bolts, because Obviously the new chain is going to have its own new length, so these will need to be backed away, and it's a good chance to get in here and clean these up, get some lube in there so that they don't seize up. Right, the next stage is to get all this cleaned up. Now in theory I could just rip this chain off, throw it away and not worry about it, and then just clean up areas such as around the chain slider and in the sprocket cover here and inside this cover here, so that this is all cleaned up. But I want to do this area and because I'm keeping the chain. Now it's an old worn out chain, but chances are I can find a use for it in some project or other, and I don't really want to store it as a greasy chain. So what I'm going to do is clean it all up, get rid of the grease, and then we'll move on. When I was breaking loose the nuts on this sprocket when it was sitting on the bike, it seemed to be a little bit more wobble than I was expecting as I was actually breaking them loose. You expect a little bit of movement because you've got the rubber cush drives that will absorb a little bit of vibration, but there seemed a bit too much. Turns out I was right. There was too much, and there was a problem. Come on in and I'll show you. Whilst the cush drives seem okay, the problem is this bearing that's in the carrier. Now if you're not familiar, there is 3 sets of bearings, or 3 bearings in a rear wheel. You've got the rear wheel bearings, one either side, and you've got one in the carrier, because of course these all sit on the axle and spin around the axle. Now the bearing in the carrier is much bigger than the bearing in the wheel. A little bit dirty in there, and that is a sign in itself an issue. All this dirt shouldn't be in there, and that's a sign this seal here has died. It's an oil seal. It's supposed to stop stuff getting through here and into the bearings. But this is the size of the wheel bearing, this is the size of the carrier bearing, and of course this carries all the power from the chain jerking backwards and forwards, so it's a big heavy duty bearing, but this one is absolutely destroyed. The other thing I noticed is that this spacer which sits in here is in really poor condition. There's some grooves in there which I don't think are supposed to be in there, and the edge is all curled up here. I'm not sure if it had been in the wrong way around, but if you look at this, if you look at this seal, that's supposed to be a tight fit on there, and if you look here, this is all jagged. So there's 2 issues. If this is rusty, it's going to be like sandpaper on this surface here, and it's going to rip it up. But the fact that it's so ripped up indicates that something's been wobbling. Perhaps the whole carrier has been wobbling as the bike's been riding, and this could be another reason why it's just felt off. The spacer that goes the other side here seems to be okay. It's dirty, and I'll give it a brush up and see what it comes up like. Otherwise I might need to buy one of these as well. But I say all this dirt in here just shouldn't be here. Let's see if we can get this dust cover out of here. This is really in not good condition at all, and when you can see that there's actually metal inside this, it's not just that. The fact that this is worn out, rough and ragged tells us bad things have been going on. Now, this is what's left of the bearing. Now, first glance you might think, oh, there aren't enough bearings, where have they gone? But this is a sort that actually has a metal cover that are supposed to hold these apart. This is all that's left of that metal strip, is just twisted bits of broken metal. It's really not good at all. So new bearings are going to be ordered and installed for here. Right, let's pull this bearing out. Let's clean the debris out that it's gonna. We're gonna pull it out this way. It's gonna slide across any debris that's here. So let's just get rid of that. Give it a little lubrication just so it will come a little easier. Blind hole puller, and in fact this one is a little too big to go that way, but since we don't have to use it as a blind hole, we can show it there. This bearing is unbelievably bad. That's how bad this bearing is. So now we are going to have to use a blind hole puller in earnest. The puller's just not making a good enough bite into the lower part underneath the bearing. There we go. One completely destroyed bearing. Right, that's all I can do for now. I need to go and order some parts. When they're delivered, then I can get back on the build. So, thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys again soon.